Hey everybody, Black Ninja 797 here, and welcome back to another Left 4 Dead 2 ranking video. And today's ranking video, I am ranking basically everything in Left 4 Dead 2 from worst to best. For the last 3 years on this channel, I have fundamentally ranked and talked about every subject matter in Left 4 Dead. So as we basically wrap up Left 4 Dead 2, I want to end up having fundamentally kind of like a final hoorah for the Left 4 Dead rankings. And so I thought it'd be fun if we just ranked literally everything we have talked about for the last 3 years. So what I decided to do was I decided to end up looking at my old ranking videos from when I first started them up until now, which by the way, thank you guys so much for the support on those videos, because when I look back on those, sometimes I honestly don't know how you guys watch those. But yeah, I basically took a trip down memory lane and looked at the playlist, which if you guys want to see all the old ranking videos in their original form, there will be a link down below in the description. But basically I decided that I would take pretty much most of those videos, not all of them, but most of them, and end up just putting them in a giant compilation from worst to best. I'm only going to be talking about the stuff that is specifically found in-game for Left 4 Dead, and not the stuff that's found outside of Left 4 Dead, or is only just related to Left 4 Dead, but is a different game altogether. Now with all that being said, guys, let's take every aspect of Left 4 Dead and end up ranking them from worst to best, and see why we all love this game so much. Alrighty guys, so coming in at the very first spot, this is going to be the menu backgrounds. This is a subject that I talked about kind of in an artistic style a few months ago. It's something I want to give appreciation for, but to be honest, at this point, we've all probably just decided to ignore it subconsciously because we've seen it so many times, but it is at least worth acknowledging at the very bottom of the list. And now back to back, I'm going to end up listing the game mode icons, the sprays, and also the loading screens, because these all fall within the same categories of artistic aspects of the game, and there's really nothing much to say about them other than that they look cool. Next on the list is going to be the Carnival games that are on Dark Carnival. There's only 3 of them, and they are fun novelties, but they are very infrequently used, and they are just mostly for show. Next is going to be the game's NPCs, such as Virgil. These guys can end up making the game quite fun and very novel, with Virgil and Church Guy being 2 of my favorites. Next is jukebox songs. Jukebox songs I don't listen to too often in Left 4 Dead, but when I do decide to play them, I really do like the selection of songs that you can get. You can get anywhere from Midnight Rider songs all the way up until a Portal Easter egg, where you end up getting the song Still Alive. Next, I decided to list the cutscenes. These are going to be things such as the intros of both games, and they're really badass and always a treat to watch. I especially love the one from the second game. It has one of my favorite all-time quotes, which is from Nick, which is, "I have not come this far to dine out," and I still will always love that line. Next, we have in-game tips and then in-game challenges. They're very similar, although I do like the challenges a little bit more because they're technically for stats' sake, and you can end up showing off or just bragging to your friends just because. Now we have what I like to call throwable objects, because there's really not a name for these things. This is going to be like gasoline cans, propane tanks, and oxygen tanks. These are the things that you just find in the environment that you can use to your advantage. Next on my list, I have dynamic events. Really, the only one I care about is the plane crash on Dead Air. Otherwise, the other ones are just kind of a given. Slightly higher on the list in comparison to the jukebox songs is going to be the Midnight Rider songs. Midnight Rider songs such as One Man Band and Midnight Ride and All I Want for Christmas Is to Kick Your Ass are some really fun songs to listen to. It's my own personal preference, but I do believe it should be higher on the list. Now I have voting options. Now I know what some of you are going to say. A lot of you are going to have voting to kick PTSD, and you're probably going to end up saying that this should be at the very bottom. I understand that. I know that this is heavily abused, but the system itself has a lot of great voting options minus that particular one, such as changing difficulty, change the map, reset the game, etc. So we can't end up combining all of those with vote to kick. That is why it's higher on the list, although I do feel your guys' pain. I have played Versus recently for a Versus ranking, so I know how you guys feel. Next is going to be rescue vehicles. This is something that we take for granted, but it's still a very fun and critical aspect of the game. Next on the list is special infected music. Special infected music is something that I have gotten used to while playing Left 4 Dead for so long, but it's still one of my favorite things because of the immersion it brings. It's crazy how a single piano key or orchestra can end up making you feel dread. Next on my list is going to be game mode difficulties. I believe that all the game mode difficulties are different enough from each other that I should just have this be its own separate spot on the list rather than clump it together with, like, let's say the voting options. Next is going to be safe room / safe room locations. Some safe rooms are better than others, but without safe rooms, we just would not have Left 4 Dead. So we need to appreciate the safe rooms for what they are, because without them, we would not have the game. Now, this might be a hot take. I was just as surprised as you guys when I decided to put these here on the list. But comparing this to everything else across the board, these two things just do not match up, and I think that they are deserving of being at this spot in the list. Back to back, this is the common normal zombies and the uncommon special zombies, such as the Fallen Survivor. I know some of you guys are wondering, why am I putting the zombies so low in a zombie game? It's a critical aspect of the game, so why would I end up not putting it higher up on the list? I understand that, and let me explain. Number 1, the special infected are more important to Left 4 Dead than the other zombies are. The other zombies are insignificant in comparison. Second of all, Left 4 Dead is more than just a zombie game at this point. It's a universe. People love other aspects of the game other than just the zombies. I say this is because you could end up installing a mod, for example, that makes the zombies literally anything else, and you're just shooting at ads. You're not specifically shooting at zombies anymore, and people can still have fun. Of course, the normal common zombies and the uncommon zombies are going to be a fundamental aspect of Left 4 Dead, and that's not going to change anytime soon. But when you compare the common and the uncommon zombies up to everything else, literally everything else, they just don't end up deserving a higher spot on the list. Let me ask you guys a question to drive this point home. Would you rather play something like tank mode, where you're running around from 4 different tanks on a map and trying to end up getting to the finish line before they can kill you? Or would you rather just play a game mode where it's nothing but common zombies and you just try to play like normal Left 4 Dead? Here's also another thing to think about if you're still hesitant. Do you really want to play a game mode where most of the zombies are the Riot Gear zombies, or the CETA agent zombies, or the Fallen Survivors? Most of the uncommon zombies are annoying and the common ones are just boring, so I feel like if we got rid of them and only had just special infected, I don't think people would miss the other ones too much. Okay guys, next on my list is glitches. Just glitches, period. Something that you're not supposed to technically do within the game, but it's still within the game, so you decide to do it anyways just to screw around and have fun. This can be like the map glitches, God mode glitches, flying glitches, etc. And these are all tremendously fun if you are in a certain mood. One of my favorites to do personally is the grenade launcher glitch, where you fling somebody up into a spot they shouldn't be, just because it's just simply fun. Or sometimes glitches can be straight up nightmare fuel, such as this one that was found online by Lincoln Duck, which is where his game glitched and his textures got replaced with a jockey face, and this looks absolutely horrifying. Next is going to be Easter eggs. This can be the Easter eggs that are tied to achievements, or just Easter eggs that are just something that you find that are a reference to some other pop culture thing. I, for example, think that an Easter egg could be anywhere from the golden crowbar that's hidden in the one shack on The Last Stand, or it can even be something as simple as a piece of dialogue that you find written on the wall that's a reference to something else that you know. Now I want to talk about voice lines. Voice lines can end up being so famous that they are even sometimes popular or known outside of their little community from where they came from. And they can even stand the test of time, where they are remembered for years. And I think that Left 4 Dead, in terms of pop culture, has some very famous lines. I even mentioned one earlier, back at the beginning of the video, talking about the one that I saw from the trailer that was said by Nick, and I still remember it years later. The quote can be funny, the quote can be badass, the quote can just be flat out stupid, such as all the Keith lines that Ella says. There's really nothing specific that exactly makes a good quote. Sometimes people just take one and they'll roll with it, kind of like a meme, and it's just a matter of time to see what is the next popular thing that people pick up next. Next is going to be achievements. It can be any game, but if there's achievements, I will go for them. I am a achievement hunter. I am a grinder. I very much love playing games for all that they're worth. And one of the things you guys know me for the most is my achievement grinding, because those are some of my most popular videos. So I know that you guys are achievement hunters as well. There's just something satisfying about a little trophy or a little badge on your profile basically saying that you did it. You basically did something that was out of your way, either for the sake of novelty or something that was very challenging. But the point is that you made the game last for all it was worth, and you did something fun and memorable. And that little badge or that little tick or that little achievement on your profile Now every single time you look at it, it's a memory. And that's why I love achievements so much, is because they give me the ability to relive my memories free of charge. Next is going to end up being drops, such as med kits, Molotovs, pain pills, bio bombs, pipe bombs, adrenaline shots, etc. These things are just a nice added bonus to the guns when you're killing zombies. I love being able to burn them with fire or knock them off of a building by making them chase a bio bomb because they're stupid and they don't know what they're doing. I love blowing them up with pipe bombs. And I just also like the ability to run fast with adrenaline, or be able to pop pain pills really quickly, or even defib my teammates back to life if we make a mistake. I like how that the game is more strategy based more than meets the eye, because it's not just about shooting guns. You also have to be smart and use the equipment that you find within the map. Now I want to talk about panic events, or crescendo events, whatever you would like to call them. Basically the mini events that you have in the middle of a campaign chapter, where it's like, activate this random task to proceed at the risk of alerting zombies. Some are better than others. I do have some of my favorites. But when it comes to the panic events, they all serve a purpose, which is a rise and a climax. So basically, when you end up having a campaign, it will build till you have a climax, which is usually the panic event. And typically, shortly thereafter, you will end up being in the safe room. So it's usually get out of the spawn, go eventually until you reach a panic event, get to the safe room about 4 or 5 times on average, and then eventually you'll have some sort of finale. Okay, now we are going to be talking about the director, specifically the director paths, which was one of my most recent ranking videos. The reason why I use the term director paths and not the director just as a whole is because the director is more than just spawning in a certain amount of zombies in a certain area and just trying to basically throw off the player. The director does quite a lot of things, but I specifically want to talk about the pathing that he does, because that is something that I feel like changes the game the most. So it's one thing to have certain things spawn in, but it's an entirely different thing when the director changes the map. There are some times where the director will just flat out block certain areas and make you go another way, and that's the thing I want to talk about. I like when the director can make me just all of a sudden be like, oh hey, you know that area that I was going to go? Well, I guess I can't now because all of a sudden there's a wall in the way, or there's a staircase in the way, or there's not enough players alive to go this path for the director to spawn in this option. The director gives the game novelty, one of the best things a video game can have. No play session in Left 4 Dead is ever going to be the same. It keeps me from getting bored, and it makes it where I can always be ever improving, because I'm never going to be able to get into a pattern of being able to memorize spawns and being able to get the same loot over and over and over again. I have to work with what I'm given. So it's very, very fun that the fact that I'm never going to basically be perfect at this game, so I can always end up trying to get as close as I can. Okay, now this might be another one of the hot takes that I have throughout today's video, but it also is going to end up making sense once I explain it. So this is going to end up being just all the melee weapons. For me personally, I was never the biggest fan of the melee weapons. I played Left 4 Dead 1 without any melee weapons, and I got by just fine. For me, I would just rather end up having a gun or the unlimited shoving back, because that's just my playstyle. I like to run and gun, not really run and stab. And the melee weapons, even though I have been learning about them and being able to get better at them as I've been playing this game for the last couple of years, I've been learning about their swing patterns and tick rate and everything from you guys, I just still am not the biggest melee fan, and that's okay. Everyone's got their niche, everyone's got their favorite weapon to use. I mean, I do have a couple favorite melee weapons of mine, but it's just not my favorite aspect of Left 4 Dead. And I think that that's okay, but you guys can also let me know in the comment section down below where you would have put the melee weapons, because I know that some of you end up really loving them, and they're a favorite part of the game for you. Now, unlike the melee weapons, something I am a massive fan of is going to be the console commands. I love this about playing the game on PC. I used to end up playing the game on Xbox back when I was younger. I had the Xbox 360, and I played the Xbox 360 version of both Left 4 Dead 1 and Left 4 Dead 2. As I got older and I was able to afford my first gaming PC, one of the games I repurchased was Left 4 Dead 2, because I knew that you could download mods for it on Steam. And I love the ability to download mods and be able to make my game feel very sandboxy. So when I found out that also just the way that the engine is and the way that Left 4 Dead is as a game, and I realized that you could do whatever you want by just knowing basically the right code to input, kind of like an old school game back on the PS2, the original Xbox, and the GameCube era where you had cheat codes. And I very much enjoy just screwing around with no clip or spawning in weapons or putting in a whole bunch of tanks for no reason just to try to run away from them and kill my teammates. Just funny little random things like that. Console commands allow me to scratch my impulsive creative itch that I have. I love how that Left 4 Dead is a really great base game, and with a combination of the Steam Workshop and console commands, I can make this game also my own game at the exact same time. Okay guys, so now we're going to be moving on to the game modes. Now instead of lumping all the game modes in together as one pile, I am going to rank them individually within reason. So I'm going to rank Scavenger, Versus, and Survival all separately, but the mutations will all just be one single thing. So when I end up saying mutations, I am referring to everything later on in the list. But the first game mode that I would like to address, because it's different enough, is going to end up being Scavenger mode. One of the things the Steam community really hasn't done exactly as well as Valve, in my opinion, is make new game modes. So with game modes in Left 4 Dead, we have the main few, which is going to be the normal campaign, versus, scavenge, and also survival mode. And then there's of course the mutations, but those are kind of all like their own separate mini game modes. But the main four is going to end up being the ones I priorly listed. Scavenge is the weakest of those four. Scavenge is when you have Left 4 Dead sandbox, but done wrong. Because what happens is that instead of just trying to end up doing the best aspects of Left 4 Dead, which is survive, you are forced to end up being OBJ heavy, or objective heavy. Games struggle when the survival aspect of the game is hindered by trying to complete a blind objective. And so when you make that into a game mode, it's no wonder that Scavenge has no lobbies to fill because nobody's literally playing it. The most successful games are where their OBJs, or their objectives that you can end up completing, are already formed around the idea of what the player was wanting to do to begin with. The player doesn't want to have to end up risking their life to complete the objective. The objective should just happen by the way that they play the game already. Because otherwise, if you don't do that, what's going to happen is that everyone's going to end up feeling like their teammates will never pull their weight, and if they die because of that, then they're going to assume that their death is related to the fact that their teammates didn't do a certain action or air quote put in enough effort as much as you were. I bet you have all had this thought. I could have survived if I didn't have to do the objective and could just simply defend myself. But I can't because my teammates all have the same idea as me, and we need to end up getting more points to win, so if we don't play the objective, we will lose. So because my teammates won't play the objective, and I am forced to, that causes my death, meaning my death is responsible because of my teammates not caring enough. But despite talking a lot of crap about Scavenger mode, if you get the right circumstances, it's actually really fun. It's just that typically you have to end up playing with friends. Next is going to be all the Mutations game modes. The Mutations game modes are fundamentally better than just Scavenge as a whole, but they're definitely not as good as the other two that we're going to be listing here in a second, which is going to be Survival and Versus mode. So when it comes to Mutations, I have some of my favorites being the ones related to the Special Infected, so like Hunter Barrage, Tank Mode, Tank Run, etc. Basically anything that's kind of like a game of cat and mouse where you're just basically chasing somebody. Those are my favorites. I love the idea of either fighting a boss or running away from a shit ton of bosses because it's fun. It gives me a mild adrenaline boost because I'm fighting for my life. Now this next game mode is my favorite other than single player. This is going to be survival mode. I know that people like Versus more, but I think that survival mode is my personal favorite. I love the idea of just holding out as long as you can. The idea of having basically everything and being able to play with at least 3 of your other friends is just fun to me. I love the idea of last as long as you can. Plus, it also gives me a really good representation of my actual skill level, because if I have everything at my disposal and I'm pretty much up against every single possible threat in the entire game, if I can see a timer of how long that I lasted with those resources and those enemies, I can actually gauge my proper skill level. This is why I loved going for all the gold medals and trying to get the killing spree achievements, because I was able to show that I mastered multiple maps and basically was pretty much the best at the entire game, or at least one of the best. Next, we've got Versus Mode. Now, I played Versus Mode again recently for a separate ranking video, and Versus is not exactly my personal favorite because of how toxic it can get. I'm just way too old for this shit about just arguing over who has better superiority in the pixel simulator online with strangers. It's just not my thing. And trust me, I can get very competitive if I want to. I've played FPS games for the last decade of my life, and it's only recently I started to take a break from them and go back to the single-player games I used to love because of the fact that I am just kind of burnt out on them. So Versus does have its place. It is very fun, especially if you have an entire lobby full of your friends. I think that Left 4 Dead Versus mode, honestly, the peak is when you end up having an entire lobby full of people that you know, or at least is not toxic, and you treat it kind of like an Among Us lobby, where it's just like a mixture of trolling that's healthy for you, and just kind of having lighthearted, good fun. It's competitive, yes, and it's trolly, yes, but it's mostly about fun at the end of the day and just having a good time. Does that make sense for an analogy? Like, treat it like an Among Us lobby, guys. Treat it like an Among Us lobby. And then, of course, the best game mode in all Left 4 Dead is the single-player campaign, or at least the cooperative campaign as well. Playing the base campaign with your friends or solo is just as much fun either way. I love the idea of going from No Mercy all the way up into The Last Stand and just playing for hours and hours and hours on end. The director helps, playing with friends helps, playing by yourself is okay, however it is that you choose to do. But Left 4 Dead will always be its best in its original form, where it's just a campaign, horror game, FPS, survival masterpiece. Alright, so now we're moving on to the last 5 things. Now, these last 5 things are my personal favorite things in all of Left 4 Dead. I think that for a lot of you guys, it also is as well. And 1 or 2 may be interchangeable, but I would like to believe they would all still be within the realm of these top 5, just in a slightly different order. So let's do the very last 5 things and see what is truly the best aspects about Left 4 Dead. Coming in at our number 5 spot, this is all the maps. All the maps from No Mercy all the way up until The Last Stand. These maps are going to be some of the best that you'll ever see in video game history. They are great design, great atmosphere, and they are overall some of the most fun experiences you will ever have in your life. You can use them on pretty much all the other game modes in the game other than just single player and cooperative campaign. Some work better than others, but you can work them into scavenger, survival mode, mutations, etc. They are great for also sandbox purposes. If you want to end up using them just to goof around, you can do that. If you also want to use these for outside of the game, like I know some people will use the assets of Left 4 Dead to make online videos all the time. And I think that these maps are staples in video games. I'm pretty sure if you showed anybody any generic Left 4 Dead map, somebody would know exactly what that is. Even if they don't play the game, they will at least know. These maps are what make the universe of Left 4 Dead. These maps will always be memorable in my eyes. I'm never going to forget these even if I move on from Left 4 Dead, because these maps were just so much fun when I grew up with the game, and they're still fun now. They are something that is to be remembered because they end up giving you a experience, they give you a memory, and they give you something to end up making you happy. And then the next spot here is going to be all the bullet guns. So the assault rifles, the sniper rifles, the shotguns. I really think that pretty much every bullet gun in Left 4 Dead is extremely fun to use. It's really not a bad gun, minus like, I guess like 2. I really don't care for the bolt action snipers that were added within the Last Stand update. But that's like the only guns I won't regularly use. Every other gun in Left 4 Dead, I will at least give a chance, and that's a really good track record. In fact, out of all my Left 4 Dead ranking videos, the ranking of the guns was the #1 supported video out of all my ranking videos. It had the most amount of likes, the most amount of views, the most amount of comment interactions. Everyone loved that gun video. Now, that could have just been a fluke, but I think not, actually. I think that just a lot of people love the gunplay of Left 4 Dead, and that's why a lot of people were looking it up. Because the guns in Left 4 Dead just feel crispy. They feel nice. They feel really fun to use. And you might notice I keep using that word here, fun. These last few things I've talked about, these subject matters, the adjective I always describe them with, at least, is fun. There's nothing wrong with wanting to feel overpowered. Damn it, I'm overpowered and I'm proud of it. Okay, guys, now these top 3, oh my god, this was so neck and neck and neck, but, like, keep in mind is that this is just my humble opinion, but honestly, these are interchangeable, so I might honestly just change my opinion like 5 minutes later after I record this video, but here it goes. The number 3 thing in Left 4 Dead, even though technically there's going to end up being only 2 that are, like, within the actual game still here on the list, this is going to be all the survivors. Zoe, Lewis, Francis, Bill, Coach, Nick, Rochelle, Ellis, all 8 of them. And yes, I do mean it with Rochelle too. All 8 of them are amazing characters. They're not perfect, and some will end up being better than others. I know that there's some fan favorites, and everyone can pretty much agree that Rochelle's the least of those. But I can tell you this, is that I would rather have all 8 Left 4 Dead characters any day of the week than most generic video game characters. Okay, guys, now these last 2 things, at least one of them is going to be technically outside of the game, and you'll understand what I mean later. It's one of the few exceptions I made throughout this list because I had to draw the line somewhere. But coming in for the number 2 spot in general, and the number 1 spot of just all the things within the game, what makes Left 4 Dead such a great-ass video game, this is going to be the Special Infected. Any of them. All the Special Infected are memorable, they're unique, they're overpowered, they're scary, they're fun. They are some of the best creative zombies you will ever see. The Walking Dead scares the shit out of me to a certain degree just from the normal zombies. Can you imagine if there was a real-life Left 4 Dead where if they had the Walking Dead type of level of makeup for the Special Infected? Oh my god, that would be horrifying. Can you imagine a real-life jockey or a witch or a tank? The only reason that the Special Infected music hits the way it does is because of the way that these things are designed. Have you seen some of the cut art for the jockey, for example? This is horrifying. I love the maps, I love the guns, and I love the survivors. But when there's no Special Infected, something feels missing. And there's a reason for that, is because the Special Infected is what makes Left 4 Dead different than every other generic zombie game. I can tell you this, recently when I played Japanese Left 4 Dead, because I have the video ready, it's just not out yet until we hit 4,000 subscribers, when I played with the Japanese characters, and I can't understand Japanese, and they just felt like just generic NPCs because of that since I couldn't understand what they were saying, I didn't really necessarily have a problem with that. I didn't really have a bad impact by not knowing what was going on with the characters. So it's not the survivors necessarily being missing. The maps are all the exact same, but there's some maps I can live without. It's not like I love every map. And I also can live without certain guns. But if I have no Special Infected to kill, and it's just the commons, Left 4 Dead is just like any other generic zombie video game. The Special Infected is what is the key to Left 4 Dead's success. It's what makes the game work. But guys, even though we have addressed the Special Infected, I got one more thing that I would like to mention at the very end here for technically the number 1 spot. The Special Infected were for the base game, but this is still very much Left 4 Dead. It's just minorly outside of it, especially also given the fact that because it's only on PC. But this is going to end up being the mods. Whether it be a gun, or a character, or a new game mode, or even a whole-ass new map. Mods make Left 4 Dead 2 feel like a sequel. It makes it feel like Left 4 Dead 3. That's probably to a certain degree why Valve has to this day never released Left 4 Dead 3 or made Left 4 Dead 3, is because the mods for Left 4 Dead 2 are enough. Now yes, I would still love a Left 4 Dead 3 as much as anybody else, but with the community constantly updating the game, I can understand why Valve wouldn't need to, because why would you take the risk on making a potentially flopping sequel when your current game is already enough? People can basically make the sequel for you by doing it with the mods. I mean, we sort of keep the game already alive with the updates, so mods also are another layer upon that. As much as I love Left 4 Dead, I have already played the base game for all it's worth at this point. I have grinded the ever-living crap out of it for the last 3 years, and I have everything now. And so because I have everything, other than just my pure enjoyment and novelty from the game, I really have nowhere else to go unless I give myself something to do. And this is where mods are incredible. Mods keep me from getting bored. They allow me to be able to make the game feel new again. And as long as there is mods available frequently for Left 4 Dead 2, I will probably occasionally, every now and again, basically for the rest of my life, at least whether it be for my own enjoyment or maybe perhaps for a YouTube video, will revisit this game every so often, because there will always be something to do. But yeah, guys, with all that being said, this is basically it. This has been the conclusion of the Left 4 Dead ranking series. I have ranked everything from worst to best, even literally in today's video. This has been an amazing 3 years for this series, and I do truly hope you guys end up enjoying it. I never really ask for much when it comes to likes. But this video, since this is the very last one most likely, if we can please hit something crazy like 30 likes for this video, it would mean so much to me, and I'd be forever grateful. But yeah, guys, I hope you end up enjoying seeing another YouTube video from the most unique YouTubers you're ever going to see. Thanks for watching, guys. I love all of you, and peace out.
Hey, meme lords. Jesus here. And you better have enjoyed that video there by the eternal god Daddy Ninja. You should probably subscribe too. Or the mighty Moab will come for your balls. If you enjoyed the video, you might like it too. And give me the memes. Flash, bang, boom!